the next thing is to cut ourselves a stretch of string, which will make the handle wrap. So you can see it's a full length. I got a little bit of wetness from the grinder there. And then to burn the tips like that, as you can see. You want to turn them into little needles so they're easier to push through the end of that. And we do that, of course, by getting our good old paracord, cut it full arm's length, and then you remove the internals. I have the already pre-flattened paracord on the shelf where the guts have been emptied. It's called gutted paracord or something, but these are too small for that. These are too small. The scalpels are too narrow and too small for the gutted paracord to work, right? And the reason for that is when you're going around, the flat one has already a predetermined shape, so you can't just squeeze it flat wherever you want. So because these are hollow round, you can squeeze it wherever you want and force it to conform however you want, whenever you want. Those, it's a bit more tricky. It's fine on larger handles and larger knives, but when it's this small, you have to get the regular paracord and empty out all the stuff and then burn the tips. I need to find my lighter. So we got our string. I get my Kisaki, tap the ends off. I don't know where my actual lighter for this is, so I had to use this one. This one's not as reliable as the other one that I have. You see it's already, yeah, whatever. And then from here, generally what you do is you just sit down for like 2 or 3 hours and do as many of these in one go and get a stack of these done. What I like about the paracord, of course, is that it's kind of like my version of injection molding. Oh. Yeah, this thing never fucking works, I swear to God. I'll be back. Alright. It's funny with these lighters. I started collecting them a while back, like a couple years ago. I just sort of randomly order and buy these torch lighters. I don't know, I just got kind of addicted to them. They're awesome. But it's funny how like the price does not mean, when it comes to these kind of lighters, the price does not mean quality. This is the cheapest one I've ever bought for $2, and it's the only one that's continued working ever since. I mean, the lid fell off and all this kind of stuff. This one, they were $10 each from a cigar store. They never even properly worked. They worked day one. I just can't get them to ever work properly or for long periods of time. And it's funny. I have 30 euro ones, 50 euro ones, and this one's just the only one that hasn't given up on me. It fills up easy. So just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's good, you know. I'm really surprised actually how good this one is. You can actually also see how used up it is. So, there we have it. So, now we got 2 strings like that. So here we've got our shrink tubes. And I have a drawn here like a 90-degree thing that lets me clean off the side that's been sliced, cut, so that it's like as close to 90 degrees as we can get it. I gotta figure out a better system for that. Because because it's nice when it's nice and flush, of course. Makes it easier. There we go. These Kisakis are super useful for making these knives. So now we've got this. Make sure I got the correct side. And you see, then you want to pinch it. This is I got a trusty heat gun. Oh. I want to make sure that it's right up there. I didn't get it like 90 degree enough, but I have to fiddle around with it a little bit. Yeah, I didn't get it 90 degree enough. Let's see if the other one is 90 degree enough. It isn't. It's very annoying trying to get a clean 90 degree cut there, but whatever. Gotta be careful with your fingers here, of course. There we go. Very hot now. And then we have our nanocord. The nanocord is paracord that's just micro. I don't remember the exact dimensions of this one, to be honest. If I had my caliber close by, I could measure it, but maybe it says here 1.2 millimeter thick nanocord. Each one of these I wrap here around the front. And right before we continue, I'm gonna get my little glue thing here. Oh, fuck this thing. It's always goddamn fucking stuck, I swear to God. Two things with super glue. Really major safety issue having to use your mouth to open these caps. Oh nice, it still leaks. Another thing with super glue is that more than any other task in the world, using eye protection when you're using glue like this, you know, it takes just a micro little freaking little thing of super glue in your eye and that's it. You know, you got a major fucking issue on your hands. So definitely you can grind without glasses, you can forge without glasses, you can shoot guns without glasses, you can do anything you fucking want without glasses, but when it comes to this kind of super glue thing, you really do want to wear glasses, because that is, you can get a piece of metal in your eye and you're fine. You get a drop of fucking super glue in your eye and you're not fine. So that's just a observation there. And the fumes are also really intense. So when it comes to this part, I give myself a little bit of distance every single time I wrap this around. It's exactly the same, and I get it right up at the front. Shit, this thing can move away now. We don't need that. I usually have something else. Fuck, what's this here? I usually have something else under this, so I don't want to get the moose. This is tabletop here. It's moose leather. We got on a hunting trip. I got a bit of glue there somehow. So we got to get that right there. Then I go around, underneath, over, Great, there was super glue on the tip of that. I've got it in my mouth. It's never happened before. Tastes fucking weird. So then, this is like where you want it to be super tight. That immediately stuck on my tongue. Now I got like a little spot on my tongue that's all fucking super glued. Tastes fucking weird. So you got to be careful with this part. I like to, on the scalpels I do this anyway. On bigger knives I do the whole entire length nanocord, because the way that the paracord binds into that cross, the strings that are crossing is very, very strong. But with these scalpels, you don't really need that because you're not hacking with them. So you see I'm very, very tight, and I go 4 times around, you see. And on the 4th, so 1, 2, 3, 4, this is where I do the other knot. All right, but I do the knot on this side. Oh well. You do want this to be pretty tight. This is important. Then you put your drops of glue here. You want to loosen it up a bit. You want that glue to go between the knot. Nice thing about super glue, especially this one, so Bison super glue liquid. Bison is the best brand I have so far found for all the paracord work. Bison super glue industrial and Bison liquid control. Liquid control is amazing. So is this industrial. It doesn't stain the paracord. Then I get my Kisaki and we cut the excess off. Like that. Oops. Got a little murky there. Like that. Cool. And that's acts as many things. So this keeps everything together here at the front. It also acts as a place to put glue for where we start the paracord. You can see that there's a ledge, that knot there, there's a ledge, prevents any forward movement. It prevents the rubber underneath this shrink tube from also wanting to move over and move forwards. So this is actually a very, very important factor. And also on the final product, it because it lifts up this side of the paracord knot here, that's basically your locking mechanism for the sheath. So it does kind of like 3 or 4 things or 5 things at the same time. So there we have that. Now we find the center of your paracord string. I'm gonna move all this mess away. You want to put it over, flatten it a little bit beforehand. Get your fingers under there. It's gonna be very difficult for me to explain everything I'm doing from this point on, but just not too much. You do need a certain amount, because if you do too little, then it doesn't do anything actually. And then you got to be careful here as well. Just like that. Now, mind you, I have to do this with every single scalpel I've ever made. They've all gone through this process, so. You want to make sure that your paracord goes over all the strings, right? You don't want any strings, you don't want any strings sticking out from in front of the first layer of paracord, because it's very easy for something to kind of snag and then pull it out. So I see that a lot on Instagram, other guys, other makers, they do these kind of handles and the strings are exposed. So now the glue has kept that there. Now the neat thing, you see this knot that's here, that's the one that goes underneath this, the first Hero Maki, whatever, Katana knot. So there was the first knot. So this is close to the Katana method. The Katana method, you reverse the knot direction on every other one, but I'm not gonna do that because that's, you know, that's like extreme mastery level stuff, and I don't want these, I don't want to put like, I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to, I'll do it on some night someday, but it's not all that necessary. So here you want to just kind of snug it up, push everything forwards. The biggest challenge you're going to have doing this paracord wrap is just making sure that everything is super tight on the spine and on the belly. So I'm going to put the cap here on this one. I don't like wearing goggles so much, so all right. I'm going to snuggle in. We're going to do this. Now, you want to make yourself a sheath that fits right over the blade, because remember, these are like ultra sharp right now. These are super duper sharp. This is you know, so you got to be careful with that. Except I can't put the sheath on until we have a few knots down. So you put a lot of pressure as tight as you can, and you pinch it really hard, and you take your first one and you do 2 twists over like that, right? And you get your other one. See, it's gonna take a little bit of learning to do. It's a lot of dexterity. 1, 2, just like that. And then you use your fingers to kind of smudge everything in place. Remember, you got to push those knots forwards. You want to stack them as tight as you can. And then we go back to tightening them as tight as you can. So the nice thing with the katana wrap is that they have a tendency to, they stay tightened. So as you're tightening this all the way down, that tension actually stays, because it's just the nature of how the knots work is that they sort of retain that tension. They kind of keep themselves in place. So let's see how fast we can do this for the camera today. See, you want to really move that forward and take your time to make sure that, you know, the knots are nicely aligned and stuff, and you don't have like weird folds anywhere. Just push everything forwards and then as tight as you can. After I do like a whole bunch of these, after, you know, in like a week, if I do like 30 or 40 or 50 or something in one go, your upper back gets pretty sore. So I'm just gonna get along and, oops. I don't know why these things are so much more difficult to do on camera. I don't know. God damn. So when I'm in my factory mode, I go pretty quick. You see, 2 times over, 2 times over. It's a bit slow at first because I don't want to cut my fingers. Just like that. One of these paracords is a bit weird on me today. I really want to stack those down. Push that knot to the middle. Just like that. Tighten it tight. And then go over 2 knots more. Just like that. God damn. I need to take this ring off. I'm having some weird ass cramping going on in my hand, and the ring's not helping. Yeah, one of the reasons that you want to wear glasses while you're doing the glue stuff is if when you're pulling tension and the glue hasn't solidified and you slip that string, you can splash some of that stuff around. And you don't want that. Like that super glue, you know, I don't know, it's pretty dangerous stuff once you think about it. And if you're gonna expose yourself to it a lot, it's just worthwhile wearing glasses. So you see, I've done this like 1,000 times, you know. the first, I actually took the picture away off my Instagram, but the first like 5 or 6 knives I ever put on Instagram were karambits with paracord handles like this. So I've been doing paracord wrapped handles for a very long time. It's just kind of been my go-to method. But what I noticed with the paracord handle is that it suits some designs and it doesn't suit others, you know? And I think after all the different knives that I've wrapped paracord handles to, the one that makes the most sense is the Scalpel. Gosh. You want to make it as tight as you want. You know, you feel it. This is rock hard, so that's a good sign. But I'll show you whenever I can. God damn. So you really, this is the most important part right there. You see how well stacked that is? This is like, you really want to push them down. You really want to, you really want to do that. I used to use shrink tube that had glue inside. But the problem with that is that it had this, it was kind of soft and really tough at the same time. And it was way more difficult to actually have consistent knots and consistent pressure and consistent like product. It was much more, it required just a ton of strength to get the paracord done right. So just the way it is. Now I can do this quickly because I've done this, you know, like 1,000 times. Just in the scalpels alone, V1, V2, V3, you know, this is like close to number 500. So we're not including, you know, I've done with the entire rivet lock series, the longs, the mediums, the smalls, the picals, we're talking another, what, 200 knives? And that's just a couple series. So I had the buckthorn, that was like 40 knives, 50 knives. There was the, what are there? There was the Cold Boys, that was like another 40, 50 knives. So it took quite a long time to get to this point. A lot of knives and a few kilometers of paracord. So just because I can do it this fast and I make it look easy, it really doesn't mean that it is. Is it still recording yet? So, whoops. So, you know, 10 minutes to get here, that's quite a long time, especially when you have to apply a lot of pressure between each knot. So, but I think my favorite thing, really, one of my favorite things about making the scalpels is that it's a simplified process that's like highly focused around the things that I'm like quite good at. Well, I mean, I guess that's the same with some of the other knives, but it's, you know, it doesn't, I don't have to sweat fucking hard all day when I'm making these. I can actually sit in front of the window here at my office and just work on the handles. See, it's very difficult to get them that consistent like that. It's gonna take you a few tries. I've had people come here ask me to train them, and it took them 4 or 5 tries. Almost everyone, it takes 4 or 5 tries where they do it and they redo it, and it's about the 4th or 5th time that they get it right, or that it starts to look like they get it right. The difficult thing is, of course, when they're fucking left-handed or something like that, and or they have some weird thing where they can't do it with the same like they don't use the same mechanics that I'm using with my hands. They have to do it another way. just because the nature of their dexterity is different, and it's so difficult to kind of teach them. So you just have to, but they get it. So eventually, just make sure that these are rock hard. You want those nuts to be as hard as possible. It's soon about time. I could put the cover on the blade soon. Oh. Just like that. This is one of these things that a lot of people overcomplicate significantly. That's one thing I noticed with a lot of knife makers, is that they have a tendency to overcomplicate everything to justify feeling like they know better what they're doing. So they get all sorts of unnecessary jigs, they get all sorts of unnecessary tools, they do all these unnecessary extra steps, you know, to make what is essentially just a flat piece of metal with an edge on it. You know, that's what a knife is. You know, you got to remember, like, a knife is basically just a... See, there I have a bit of a weirdness, so I'm going to go back and remove those knots and start fresh and redo that. That's something that you would probably not notice, but I notice it, so I have to correct it. There we go. Corrected. Like that. Somebody's calling me. You know what's really annoying nowadays? When people call and, you know, maybe you're in the garage or something, or you're not by your phone. It's a number you've never seen before. You don't know who's calling, and then they don't send a message afterwards telling you what's up. Like, if you call somebody and they don't pick up, send them a message. Say, hey, this is Thomas. Hey, this is Mark. You know, hey, this is Celine Dion. I'm just calling you to ask about this, and if you're this and this and this, you know? Like, otherwise they're never gonna call back. Like, if people are so used to seeing messages from people they know with the names and everything attached, that when when you just see a random phone number, it's, you know, people are just like, I don't know, man, this is just too much is this a spam call? You know, these telephone salesmen have made it, like, have kind of ruined calling for everybody. It's kind of weird that in this day and age, we don't have any technology associated with actually, like, if you're calling a number you've never called before, there's no indicator as to, like, who's calling, right? You don't have your name anywhere. They can't see who you are. I mean, there's services on the internet. Okay, I'm gonna put the sheath on. There's services on the internet, you can type the number and it's like, oh, it's this guy. But it's like, okay, well, why can't you just say that on the freaking call? It's like if you go to the doctor and the police and you go to all these different government institutions, and none of them have any idea. You have to fill in the same freaking form every single time, like they've never met you before, even though, like, all your information is online. It's like, just, you know, it's like, just pick up, you know, I don't know. It's weird. So we're getting close to the end here, guys. You gotta make it tight. And then, so the trick with this, and this is a trick that, is important with any and all types of paracord knotting that you're doing. is that you're going to continue this process that we've been doing all the way up as far as you can go over this circle, over the hole. Don't stop it here. So the mistake a lot of guys do is they stop the hole here and they're like, well, how do I continue? How do I move on? How do I, and they come up with all sorts of different things that don't work. The reason is because you want to continue doing the exact same process of these knots as far up above the hole as possible. That's the secret that nobody knows. That's the secret that that nobody knows. There we go. It's a bit of a tricky part, this one. I'm glad I managed to get this all in one take. I could probably do it faster, but usually what happens is I start quick and then I end up going slow because like my brain starts to wander off in all these thoughts and all this pondering. All the hot bitches I fumbled. Nah, just kidding. So you see I'm going over the hole. I'm going as far up as I can go with this process of the knots. Let's see. I keep it consistent. Yeah, I don't know why my brain is fogging up here. Sometimes you do something for so long, you've done it so many times, you forget how you do it. Because it's automatic, it's like all muscle memory. You see, I'm still doing that knot all the way up here until the end, right there. You see that? So I'm doing those knots to the end. And then I got my trusty, this is a modified tweezer. I've grounded it as thin as I can. Yeah, then you put these through. And that's why we have to make them pointy and stiff. Kind of have to do them both at the same time. Ah! Nut. There we go. Those have to be really tight too. And there's a little bit of flaring there. Just gonna burn that off because it's annoying. Burn it off after, of course, but so now we want to cover all that steel. And the neat thing here is that by doing all this is that you're actually locking the paracord in place here. So it prevents anything from sliding backwards. There we go. Like that. So we've gone around the end. And now you see this knot here. We bring those over and in there. So like that. Now if this was a bigger knife, so you see how by pulling it to the other side like that, the last katana wrap knot that we did over the hole, it's now locked in place, you see? It's being pulled through that hole. And that, of course, prevents anything from sliding back. And when you're doing paracord, any type of dimensional change where it gets bigger in one direction, it becomes more difficult for that paracord to slide in that direction. So that's why it's so important to have it. See how beautiful and tight that is on the spine? That's how you want it. That is really like as tight as you can get it. It has to be, they basically have to be like 90-degree perpendicular to the profile of the blade. Just like this, you know, super, super tight. Yeah, so the next step is, of course, so generally with a bigger knife and a bigger hole, you go back and forth. So you go back through here over this one, and you can kind of do all sorts of cool things, and you can experiment with different types of knots. I'll have to show that on other videos, on other knives, but with this particular design, I found that all I need to do is pull this really hard all the way through, and then give myself like that. Gotta be careful here. Usually I have something soft underneath. I'll just put this freaking thing there. And I do my knot so it goes this way, that way, almost tight. You gotta be careful here. And then you get a nice fat glob of glue, and you just pour it into that hole there. You want enough, and then you gotta be quick because it does settle. And like that. Oops, shit. I forgot to put my glasses on. There we go. So, just like that. You can just tap it a little bit. Maybe add a little bit more glue in there. And that's it, pretty much. Like that. Get yourself a nice sharp knife. What am I cutting here? What's going on? Like that. Like that. And then what I like to do is just put this away. It's got like a love-hate relationship with super glue. And then I like to char the entire pommel down. Like that. It's got a little bit of a sharp corner here. I'm gonna melt that down a little bit. Nice. Nice. And then after that, where's my tape? You get some tape. Is it still recording? Yeah, I'm surprised actually. Usually it doesn't record this long without crashing. And then I cover the blade. Ow, it's sharp. Like that. We get that super glue. And then what I do, and then I have a tool, another tool. I sort of made a mess here last week. Where's my tool? Ah, come on. It's always on this table. It's always on this table. Well, I'll just use this one anyway. It's kind of annoying. It's like the basic tool that you always use and it's gone. So then, so on this side, I put glue here because this first knot here has a tendency to roll like that. So I pull it back like this, and I put glue in there, and I roll it right back over, and that glue just kind of finishes all up. Now what I like to also do is put a bit of glue right above there, and then I get my tool out and kind of just wash it in like that, just kind of spread it out. You got to be careful here because you can easily just drop a massive glob of glue all over everything you've done, and then you've kind of messed it all up. So here as well, like that, a nice little drop of glue, and then you just spread it out over there. And I don't know, for me this makes sense, but I don't really know why. I mean, maybe, you know, waterproofing a little bit the front. That's it, you know, nothing super special. I'm just kind of filling in all those gaps at the front of the blade with some super glue. And voila, we have ourselves the Scalpel, HMK Scalpel version 3. This one is not actually as refined as some of the other ones. This was like done on video, so it's a bit difficult to do things on video, but it's very close. It's very, very nice one still. And so you see we have a polished spine, nice steep grind at 80 grits. So very, very nice. Very, very nice. Every time I finish one of these, I look at it for a couple minutes and just think to myself, man, that's so beautiful. How did I come up with this? So the next thing is the sheath. The next thing is the sheath, which is actually super simple.